back. You're with Andrew Doyle, standing in for Nana Akua on GB News on TV and on digital radio. Algerian boxer Imani Khalif, the athlete at the centre of a gender eligibility storm, has advanced to the women's semi-final after defeating Hungary's Anna Lucia Hamori yesterday. And Khalif was previously disqualified from last year's World Championships over gender eligibility criteria, with boxing boss saying the Olympics is destroying women's sports. Now, the Olympic organisers have doubled down on their decision to allow Taiwan's Lin Yuting, an athlete in the same position, and Algeria's Imani Khalif to compete. And the Algerian Olympic Committee has filed a complaint with the International Olympic Committee over their treatment. So I'm bringing my panel back in now. Welcome to GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and political commentator Suzanne Evans. Nigel, I'm going to start with you. This is a bit of a complicated one. The first thing to say, I think, is this is not an issue of transgenderism. It's got nothing to do with that. That's
right. So what you have here is Imani Khalif was born a woman, has lived like a woman, has competed as a woman all her life, and as far as the International Olympic Committee are concerned, she is a woman. So where the complication arises is what the International Boxing Association did at the World Championships.
Yes.
And this is all terribly murky, and that's why it all gets complicated. They're a Russian-led organisation. They're now banned by the International Olympic Committee over a load of irregularities, financial, refereeing, judging, unfairness. They conducted a test after Imani beat a Russian woman boxer. So there's a lot of suspicions there.
Okay, but let's leave aside the corruption things, because I think those things are separate to the sex verification tests, which have not been contested by either of the athletes who participated. So it's not just that both individuals have XY chromosomes.
But we don't know that.
We do know that, yes.
No, we don't know that.
Well, why are you saying that? Are you saying that the results are incorrect?
Well, because the results are by the IBA, and those tests are so murky, and you haven't explained exactly what they were, who carried them out, and what the results were. They say they're going to do this on Monday at a press conference.
Well, let's just be clear that the IBA has said that both these athletes have XY chromosomes, and have also said that they have competitive advantages over women, which implies that they also went through male puberty. They can't release the details of the results because they would be sued for that. They would be violating the privacy of the athletes.
Well, they're going to make a press. They're going to hold a press conference on Monday where they're going to do just
right.
What
But
you're
I don't think anyone's disputing the test. I think what they're disputing.
Well, they are disputing the test.
Well, you are, but I don't think many.
Well,
people
the International Olympic Committee is disputing the test.
Well, no, the International Olympic Committee are saying that these people were born female, as in assigned female at birth, grew up as girls.
Yep.
Everyone knows that this is true. What seems very, very likely...
And they're disputing the test because they do not know exactly how the tests were done, what tests were done, and who carried them out.
So what we need is clarity, because at the moment, the assumption has to be, or the likelihood is, that both of these athletes have DSD, or a different sex development.
They might have.
And if that is the case, surely they... in that case, Nigel, if it is to be completely verified and determined that they do have DSD, should they be excluded from women's sports?
Well, then you've got to get to a completely complicated area about how different people have different hormones, regardless of their sex.
OK, I'm going to bring in Suzanne Evans.
Yeah, we're not talking about hormones here.
Right.
We are testosterone.
Right, sorry, Suzanne. So, being very clear about this, it's very unlikely that the Olympic Committee will dispute that the actual results of the test. Let's take that. I mean, it is very unclear at the moment, and what would be really helpful is if the athletes themselves were to release the results of the test. They didn't contest it at the time. It would clear things up straight away. Let's take the assumption then, which is the assumption made by most people at the moment, given the evidence that we have, that this is a case of DSD. In which case, both of these athletes are male, but they did not, and they went through male puberty, but they did not know they were male at birth, and were raised as girls. Now, this happens an awful lot, and I think in those situations, such people do deserve compassion.
My heart cries out for anyone who's in that position, and I have had close friends who've been in that position, and it's horrific. And yes, ultimate sympathies, awful. But at the same time, you have to protect sport integrity. You have to respect women. Nobody ever set up the Olympics thinking that wife-beating was effectively going to be an Olympic sport. And that's kind of what we're looking at here, I think. When you have a top athlete like the Italian boxer Andrea Carini, who literally has 2 punches and says, that's it, I'm out of here. She has trained for 4 years to get to the Olympics. And just after 46 seconds, she is so in fear of her life. As she said, you know, I had to preserve my life, that she feels she has to bow out of the competition that she has worked so hard to achieve. You think there is something horribly wrong here that should not be allowed to continue.
Suzanne, if it were the case that the results were sort of brought out into the open, everything was transparent all of a sudden, and in fact were the case that both of these athletes are indeed female, that they were just unnaturally strong or strangely strong, would you then say, OK, they should be in the sport?
It's a really difficult one. I think if you've got such high levels of testosterone that you're put at a competitive advantage and are posing a danger to others, then I still don't think it should be allowed. Well, personally, that's my personal
But that's a safeguarding issue, isn't it?
It is.
Absolutely.
So Nigel, this is the point, is that we're talking here about safety. But let's take a parallel example, the example of the athlete Caster Semenya, who is a middle-distance runner who does have DSD, in fact is male, but was raised as female. Would you say, given your position on this, would you say that Caster Semenya should be able to compete in women's sport?
Yes, I would, because, I mean...
On what grounds?
Because she is a woman.
Well, what is a woman? Well, I'm asking that seriously because...
OK, all right. Obviously, a woman is an adult female, but then we start getting into the trans debate, don't we? And a woman then is somebody who has chosen to live as a woman for 2 years
what
in this
does living
country.
as a woman mean?
All right, it means living in your acquired... If you wanted a gender recognition certificate in this country,
yes.
What it means is you must have a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. You must then live in your acquired gender for 2 years, satisfy a gender recognition panel, all those things have happened. At that point, you are officially a woman for all official purposes. So passport,
yes.
Passport, birth
We're talking
certificate,
about wearing traditional women's clothing, behaving in traditionally feminine ways.
That's right.
Wouldn't it be simpler, in terms of athletes, in terms of sports, for us to just designate it as follows and say a female is someone whose body anatomically is predicated on the notion of developing large gametes, and a male body is one predicated on the notion of developing small gametes. And that would solve all of this, wouldn't it? Because Caster Semenya is male.
Well, I mean, I would say that she's a woman. I mean,
But according to those definitions, according to the biological definition, she is male.
Yeah, well, I mean, then we come to... We're now confusing two things, because we're now getting into the whole trans woman...
No, we're not. I'm not getting into trans at all. What I'm talking about is very clearly, biologically designating that there are only two sexes. No one has ever changed sex.
That's fine.
Right?
We agree on that
and
one.
we agree, therefore, that Caster Semenya, with testes that did not develop as secondary sex characteristics, remain inside the body. Caster Semenya is male. There's no getting around that. That's a matter of fact. So my question is, do you think that under certain circumstances, a male athlete can compete in women's sports, given that condition?
Yes, but obviously what it depends on a little bit is the sport. So if somebody who has been through male puberty is stronger than another competitor,
yes,
and that matters in that particular sport, then
like boxing, for instance,
like boxing, yes, then we're in a whole different ballgame.
Oh, I see. So if it is determined definitely that Lin Yuting and Imani Khalif did go through male puberty, you would say they shouldn't be in that sport?
Yes, I mean, in the event that they are male, they should not be in women's sport. And, that's my point earlier that's contested about the XY chromosome bit.
But it seems from what we've seen, Suzanne, so far, that it is very, very likely that these two athletes did, in fact, go through male puberty. So by Nigel's own definition, they shouldn't be in this match.
I think that's right. And when you look at how tough sporting community is on even kind of minor performance-enhancing drug abuse, and then you've got something like this happening, which gives you a massive advantage, then I don't really understand there should even be a debate about this.
But then, from their perspective, they've grown up as female.
As
so to suddenly say to them, we have to take your whole vocation away.
Terribly
Isn't
sad.
that terribly cruel?
It is terribly cruel and very hard.
And if they were in America, the US Boxing Association would allow them to compete.
OK, so
final word, ultimately, particularly, I think, when you've got a sport like boxing, which is potentially very dangerous for their opponent, it can't be allowed. I'm sorry. I think the only sport in which men and women can really compete on an equal basis is equestrian sport.
Okay.
Which they do.
Which they do.
Very interesting. OK, you're with Nana Akua on GB News. It's actually Andrew Doyle sitting in for Nana Akua, in case you hadn't noticed.